Vaynerchuk is a very accomplished business person. He grew his family's wine business from $3 million to $50 million. He had a blog, a wine blog, and became known as the wine guru. And he's written several books, which we will have outside and he will be signing them later. And he's also now running a company called VaynerMedia, which is a very successful company. He's working with a lot of Fortune 100 companies. And we're very excited to have him here. And he's going to be talking about culture and what it means in the work environment. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Gary to all of you. Thank you.
Morning. I, on the other hand, gave absolutely zero thought to what I was going to talk about today last night, since I tend to go pretty improv. Given the intimacy of this room, I'm going to take advantage of it, which means, I think, given the time that we have allotted, and given the fact that content at some level is commoditized, meaning it's super easy for you to go to YouTube right now and search my last name and company culture and probably watch 8 to 15 hours worth of my thoughts on this. I think that I want to actually take this into a Q&A environment as quickly as possible, to then allow you to ask very specific things that matter. I mean, at some level, I think I can answer every single person's most important question that they would have possibly about any context they have on my career or the subject matter we're thinking about talking about here. So I'll spiel a little bit to not just mail it into Q&A, but the truth is, I think that's the most valuable thing of this. I actually fundamentally believe the days of talks are 5 to 15 years away from being disrupted, that people actually know the person's spiel going in by consuming the content and then go right into Q&A, where I think that interaction is the value. You know, to me, company culture or culture in general is an interesting subject matter because, you know, it's probably the thing that comes most naturally to me besides sales. You know, as early in my career of selling lemonade or baseball cards or slinging anything that was laying around the house that I could sell to the neighbor, as quickly I was doing that at 4, 5, and 6 years old, I was equally by 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, rounding up my friends and my sister and anybody that was around to be part of that machine, figuring out how to motivate them to do things that were for the collective. And what's interesting is, as I told those stories in my teenage years, in my early 20s, and then definitely once I started having some exposure to what I was doing and to audiences, something funny happened. You know, I started realizing that some people thought the story of me getting all my friends to work behind the lemonade stand all day was, you know, cynical, right? Like that it was a negative, that I tricked my friends into doing it. Or that, you know, when you build a real, you know, culture in a company, I think everybody here can attest and recognizes that it just depends on how you want to look at it. I mean, there's plenty of times that people look at charismatic leaders in businesses and they decide to look at the left side of the equation, which is that's cult leadership, all in the best interest of that person, and they're looking for disproportionate return at the expense of all the people that are within the organization. To me, I've really always thought about culture in the complete opposite, meaning the reason I think that I've been able, and I've grown two core businesses in my life. My family liquor store business, Wine Library, which I grew from 8 to 150 people in 3 years, and VaynerMedia, which I've grown from 30 to almost 500 people in the last 3 years, right? So when you're growing at that kind of length, and I'm not sure what everybody's careers are here, but if you've ever had an opportunity to be in a business that has gone to that much growth, you're not going to grow with structure. It's not going to be predicated on the proper review situation or the proper hiring system or all these other things that people like to talk about in HR or write in books or have young kids collect debt to teach them those processes that are completely and fundamentally commoditized and mean jack shit in the scheme of what actually is real in life, which is human behavior, human interaction, like what really happens, right? Like, who's ever read a handbook from an employee contract? I mean, like, I don't know, James, do we even have an employee handbook? We do, but I don't give a fuck about it, right? And I think that's the important part of this whole equation, right? Which is, culture is predicated on one thing. One. Like, if anybody cares about this subject matter in this room, there's only one move. It's real simple. Like, I can end this whole talk right now. It can be over now. There's only one thing that matters in culture. Intent. Nothing else. That's it. That's all that matters. What are my intentions? Because all of my behavior, whether it's out in front and very obvious or manipulated through hiding or scheming or whatever it is, however I execute my intent, black and white or gray, the intent is the part that matters. And the reason company culture comes so easy to me is somewhere along the line, I realized 49% of the value of a relationship is more than enough for me. That I'm talented enough, that I'm good enough, that I've got enough skills, that if we have a relationship, if Austin and I have a relationship, if he gives me 49% of it, the money, the work, the emotion, the opportunities, 49% of the collective, holistic value of the relationship, I'm good. And so then I spend all my time making sure I give him 51 for two reasons. One, he's gonna like the way that tastes. Two, it's leverage. It's leverage. In a world where so few want to have that kind of relationship, in a world where so many default into what's in it for me, and even scarier, what's in it for me in the next 5 minutes? What's in it for me this next year? What's in it for me in the short term, in a world where unless you die, the game continues to play, right? And so I just think the whole world looks at culture backwards. I think people think it's tactics. I think people get romantic about having HR skills and want to deploy systems, and it's all commoditized. And that's why there are so few companies that are built for success within their culture. And it's why, if you really look at it, the companies that succeed around culture, pro and con, by the way, so succeed or fail on culture, are often very predicated based on a singular leader, her, him, how they rolled. And so I actually think this is a stunningly easy subject matter that just doesn't come very easy to most people. And that's it. That's what I got. Thank you. but like, you know what's funny? Like, I'm gonna now layer on top of that for the sake of time, for the sake of trying to provide value. But the truth is, it's really that simple. Like, there's just nothing else. Like, that's why I'll always win in culture. I'll always build big companies. You know why? Because I'm not worried about the next day. I'm not worried about next month's cash flow. I'm worried about the long game. I'm playing forever. It's forever. It's for this business. It's for the next business. It's for the future business. It's I did right by Greg. He goes on to another business. Somebody sees me in a public stage where I curse a bunch. They come back. They're like, that guy's a douche. He's got a huge ego. Greg goes, you know what? Let me tell you a story about that dude. You know, blah, 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 blah. Oh, really? Blah, 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 blah. My friends, the truth is undefeated. Like the truth is undefeated. The truth can be muted for a year. The truth can be muted for a decade, but the truth is undefeated. And the more that people recognize that, the more you'll win. And the funny thing with culture is the thing that most people don't spend enough time on, that I spend an outrageous amount of time on, is creating, not, trust is very important, but believe it or not, it's actually siphoning out fear, right? So like the thing that I spend the most time on is siphoning fear out of the building, right? Like what's fun about being a leader is that I think everybody in my building's got a sense, and some have a real big sense, some have an inclining, but I think everybody understands that like I like that I'm the last line of defense. I want all the pressure on my shoulders. I demand to take the last shot of the game, right? I need that. That's what makes me tick. And what I do with that, because I eat pressure, because I love pressure, because I laugh at pressure, because what worked for me is that I just recognize what business pressure means in the scheme of actual life, right? Which is, it is my life, but If somebody called me right now and told me my mom was dying, I wouldn't give a fuck about this talk or my profit margin at VaynerMedia, right? And so when you're able to compartmentalize and put things into theory and understand what the real value is, and you're able to deploy that on your culture and make people realize they're not gonna get fired if they lose an account. They're not gonna get fired if they mispack the wine shipment. They're not gonna get fired for those things. And meanwhile, so many leaders, even people in this room, try to manage and win on fear. And fear is the quickest way to lose. It's a short-term play. You have a question? Yeah, go ahead. I'll repeat it. And actually, the acoustics are good here.
Why do you think that still happens? Managers are out there still managing problems, not relationships, and still drive with fear in the way that people did in the 1920s, where people wouldn't improve on their job because people, the boss would say, hey, you could have done it better, before, you're fired. And management has evolved so much, but it's still out there.
Did everybody hear that question? For the most part? Because I think most people suck at emotional intelligence. Because it's a skill. Because like being a good manager is a skill. It's like fucking playing hockey. You don't just automatically be good at it. Like I can't skate for shit, right? Like I'm pissed, right? Because there's all these nice skating things in New York. I can take my kids. I can't skate for dick. I'm not doing it, right? So like I can't do it. In the same way that 90% of the people in my organization are tapped out at some basic level of management. Because they themselves, the reason I'm such a good manager is because I believe in myself and have so much self-esteem and have had a history of having success that I'm not scared for somebody to be better than me. People suppress because they don't want somebody to jump over them. They play in the middle, right? They're gonna play because Jason, they're doing what's in their best interest, not in the company's best interest. And I believe that that's the company's fault. I believe that if VaynerMedia has managers that suppress, that's my fault. That because everything's my fault, that I need to weed that person out. And I try, and we do it, and we do it in a good way. And I think I pound this deep. I don't even know what we do almost. like I really want everybody to understand it for a minute. I know what we do, obviously. I laid it out, but I don't, because it's not what matters. That's all, I always tell my people, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And listen, it hurts people's feelings because it's the only thing they care about. It's like, what are you talking about? It doesn't matter. It's my life. I'm like, well, your fucking life doesn't matter because this doesn't fucking matter, right? This doesn't matter. So the reason I think people still do that is because I think there's a lot of B and C and D players in the world. And I think this is why culture is so interesting, because I love B, C, and D players. Because there's A players and B players and D players and Z players. That's just life. That's just life. I want to create a culture where all those people can win. Do you know how envious I am of people that want to make $110,000 a year and work 9 to 6 and have their weekends and take 4.5 vacations and literally go to sleep at night and not worry about anything but their inner 4 to 5 things that they have to worry about, real things. The 99% of 97%, paying rent, saving for college. I have some envy for that, because the truth is, as you start laddering up, and if you're wired the way I am, I'm not only worried about my own ambition, I'm worried about 800 people's ambitions, because I've promised them that I'm going to be big enough to make all their dreams come true, right? And then, because of the way I'm wired, if somebody loses a child in a miscarriage, or if mother dies, or best friend dies in a car accident, I worry about that too, and it just compounds. I tell my people that want to grow, I'm like, cool, you've got all the skills, but this is about wartime generals. My friends, the far majority of people are peacetime generals. Meaning, when shit's good, it's good, right? This is good, everything's good, it's good. It's fucking good, right? I'm interested in wartime generals. Right now, it's real good. I don't know if you've looked, but life's good. Things have been good, right? We had some shit fall down in the financial sector in 2008 or 9, but it's good. There's plenty of bad, and I follow all politics, but I look at data. American problems are 1% problems. The fact that you woke up one day and you ended up in America, you fucking won. I want to put perspective to everybody here. People cry about this, or you won. Go get some perspective. Go look at other places. Go understand what's happening. You want some real perspective? Go to Mississippi. How about perspective within New York culture to the rest? How about outside of New York, LA, and San Francisco, go look at America? Like, you've won. And so people complain about stuff, and things are real good. And what I'm looking for is wartime jellies. The amount of startups that I've invested in that raise $10 million and have a party for raising money. You have a party for raising debt or diluting yourself in your business. This is how broken shit is right now. I'm glad there's some old timers in here like me. Like, you have a party to dilute your equity, right? And then what happens is things are good. You have $10 million in the bank. It doesn't matter that you're not making any money. It doesn't matter that you don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're only burning $400,000 a month. And so you got time. And then shit hits the fan. And then everybody panics. And everybody quits. And then you're spending all your time trying to raise more money. So we have a very interesting time right now, which creates the culture. Culture, my friends, is predicated on one thing: the leader. The leader. That's where it comes from. That's what it is. Every one of you, no matter what you do now, if you work somewhere, I can promise you your entire culture is predicated on the person that is making the decisions.